Hey guys, today I'm out at one of Victoria's most significant places in gold mining history, Clunes. This is the site of Victoria's first official goldfield, where the gold found in a quartz reef on Donald Cameron's pastoral station was made public in July 1851. Clunes had a long and prosperous future in quartz mining ahead, and one of Victoria's most notable quartz mining operations was established here by the Port Phillip and Colonial Gold Mining Company in 1857. It may be hard to imagine today, but this hillside was once dominated by engine sheds, poppet heads and tramways, and was home to one of the most advanced and innovative mining ventures of its time. The Port Phillip and Colonial Gold Mining Company invested heavily in equipment and research, amassing a great wealth from the quartz reefs which lay beneath this hill. But as impressive as that sounds, that's not actually what I've come here for today. Today I'm here to talk about the Criterion Quartz Mining Company, which was situated right over there. The Criterion was established in 1858, and in the 1860s a brilliant lithograph was done of this mine by Herman Deutsch. This image displays many interesting features of their above-ground infrastructure, the interior of the battery and winding sheds, and a portion of their underground workings. We're going to take a look at some of these interesting features, but first I'll mention that this remarkable image is available as a huge high-quality print in my online shop at historicalgoldmaps.com.au. I'll put a link to that in the video description. So let's take a closer look, starting up top. The first thing we notice with a lot of mine sites is the impressive poppet head, which is often the tallest structure at the mine. Mullock is being dumped in a heap from this tramway, and we can see that the miners are trucking ore along this tramway to dump into these chutes, which lead into the battery. So this is the battery shed. Alongside it we see a tall brick chimney, so we assume the boilers are housed in here. There's a fella supplying wood for those boilers at this entrance. He's wheeled it over from this stockpile, which is being brought to the site by a bullock team. Mines needed a constant supply of wood and a constant supply of water. We can't see it on this image, but the Criterion was getting its water supply from the creek via a tunnel using a pump. We can see the winding rope heading up to the sheave wheels from this section here, making this the winding house. Over the other side we can see a large stone structure. Now, in the early days of operations here, the Criterion was roasting their quartz before crushing in open-air heaps, but in the early 1860s they constructed this kiln for roasting the quartz. Ore which was too large to be put through the stamp battery was first roasted to make it more brittle, then manually broken up before being taken to the stampers. So now let's take a look at the Criterion's stamp battery. Here we can see a 20-head battery with 4 stamps to each mortar box. A stamp battery is both a crushing and amalgamating machine, where gold is recovered from the crushed ore using mercury. Now, one thing about this image that I think is very unfortunate is that you cannot tell that this is actually a Cornish-style battery. The stamp stems are not drawn with enough detail to tell, and the cams are hiding behind here. But the Criterion's battery was indeed a Cornish battery. It had a cam barrel with cams spaced about it to lift the square stamp stems, and the stamp heads were square as well. The stamps were lifted and dropped directly up and down. This is different to the improved Californian-style battery, which had long curved cams on a camshaft, and the stamps were rotated with each lift, resulting in more even wear over time. Several other of the lithographs by Herman Deutsch show Cornish stamp batteries, and looking at these you can see here what I mean by a cam barrel with cams spaced about it. It's a shame we can't see those details here. The battery is run by a steam engine. The cam barrel or shaft of a battery can be belt driven, but as we can see this one is driven by a spur wheel which turns the cam barrel. There is a belt used in connection with this battery, but it's over the other end where it's using the rotation of the cam barrel to turn an amalgamating barrel. Now, after the ore is crushed, the sands are washed down over these blanket strakes, which catch the heavy materials such as gold, amalgam, and other minerals. These blankets are periodically cleaned out by washing them in tubs, and we can see this fella doing just that. From here, the material from the blankets was put into this amalgamating barrel with mercury. The mercury combines with the gold to form an amalgam, which is then heated in a retort where the mercury vaporizes and leaves the gold behind. So the battery house we've been looking at is here, and next door we have what we determined to be the boiler house by the position of this impressive chimney. The Criterion's brick chimney was 40 feet high and had a dressed stone base 10 feet square. So let's look inside the boiler house. Here we have 3 Cornish boilers set in dressed stone, very fancy. Here's some of that wood we saw being supplied earlier. These 2 boilers on the left are supplying steam for 2 horizontal engines. The big one is driving the battery and the little one is supplying the battery with water. The 3rd boiler on the right is supplying steam next door, and if you recall, we determined earlier that the next building over was the winding house, and sure enough, here we have our winding engine. It's a fairly simple engine with a single cylinder and a double drum for winding. The Criterion was winding with round manila rope, and if we follow these ropes outside, we see them head up over the sheave wheels and down into the mine shaft. Well, one of them is down the mine shaft, the other is holding a bailing tank up at the brace. These tanks were used to bail water from the well down the bottom of the mine shaft. So let's go down underground and check it out. The Criterion's 3-compartment shaft is shown here reaching a depth of 240 feet. We can see a light cage down the bottom which contains an ore truck. The miners have just started working on level 9, which is labelled here as the 40 fathom level, 40 fathoms being 240 feet. The fellas are just beginning stoping from this level and have put in a few pigsties for ground support. Now, can we take a moment to spare a thought for the hard-working miners depicted here, who are busy at work drilling holes using hammer and tap? This poor soul is sat holding and turning the drill, while his 2 mates smash it into the rock with heavy hammers. After blasting, the ore is shoveled manually into trucks and pushed back to the main shaft. That job sounds safer, but still a lot of hard work. Let's head back to the shaft and head up to level 8. This level of the mine has been worked out and the whole area has been stoped and then filled in. Well, not all of it. We can see that a section of solid ground has been left around the shaft. By 1860, the Criterion was filling up their old workings to prevent surface subsidence, and it's quite interesting to see these extra shafts underground which are labelled as filling in shafts from surface. So what were they using to fill in? If we head back up top to the brace, we saw earlier that trucks of mullock are taken out along this tramway and dumped into this heap. Well, down on the ground below, this fella appears to be busy loading that mullock into another truck, which he pushes out along the rail to this buffer stop, then tips the mullock into a shaft down to the workings below. The mullock is then used to fill in the worked out sections underground. The Criterion was one of Clunes' most productive mines. Around 1869, the Criterion amalgamated with the Clunes United Company and was renamed the Criterion Amalgamated Company. They were later taken over by the mighty Port Phillip Company and renamed Port Phillip Criterion. The Port Phillip Company was then able to access the Criterion ground from their own levels underground, and as well as mining any ore the Criterion missed, they were able to follow the ore bodies they'd been working in their own ground far beneath the old Criterion workings. Thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in learning a bit more about the famous Port Phillip and Colonial Gold Mining Company, check out my video on quartz roasting, which features a whole section on their extremely innovative and productive mining operation here at Clunes. And don't forget to head over to my online shop at historicalgoldmaps.com.au to check out my range of brilliant Goldfields prints. If you'd like to learn more about the history of the Victorian Goldfields, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.